Hey guys, how's it going? It's me here, Zach, aka Jazzy Zen, here bringing you the part 2 of Rogue's Guide, how to win more. Let's go. How'd you guys like that new little intro screen? It's pretty cute, huh? I spent like a few days trying to figure out what I wanted to do for my stream when I went to the bathroom, because I was always like, just felt weird having the room empty, so I made a little screen for that with that little character, the little possum wizard. But I think I fell in love with that little guy, and he's gonna be joining us here on the channel too as the intro screen, so I hope you guys dig it. But yeah, enough of that. Let's hop into what we're here to talk about: rogues and how to sideboard with them. Today's video is going to be definitely more focused on the mill rogues, because while I've played both rogues, I definitely feel more comfortable with the mill variant with Luris, and more comfortable giving you guys advice on how to play that one. So let's lay out what are the top decks and what we should be doing against them. Alrighty, so when we're looking at the meta right now, I'm just gonna quick Google like Magic the Gathering top meta decks or something. That's what I always do. And right now it's looking like Gruul Adventures, Rogues, Mono Green, Esper Doom Foretold are like the top 4. And Temur Ramp and Rakdos kind of go back and forth on which one is more popular. Definitely Temur Ramp has been gaining more popularity with that new Obosh build. I'll be talking about that in a later video though. But yeah, so those are the kind of the decks we're going to be looking at when we're going to be sideboarding, and those are the ones I'm going to put emphasis on in this video. But before we even get into like what cards you should be siding, what to be taking out, I kind of want to label some deck types, I guess, that we can focus on for when we enter sideboarding, how we should be thinking. So just to generalize decks, I'm thinking there's going to be creature decks, there's going to be a control deck, and there's going to be like a ramp deck. So these all three, you kind of want to interact with them in specific ways, and the sideboard is your tool basically to be able to do so. So yeah, let's talk about creature decks. With a creature deck, you really want to be able to either prevent them from playing their creatures, take advantage of their own creatures, or somehow in between that. Rogues are really good at that. You have the access to stealing their creatures in your sideboard. You can use Essence Scatter to negate their creatures, and you can kind of fly over most creature-based decks. And this really is like a good way of thinking about these creature decks, because if you can stop that from happening, you kind of just win. So removal is a good way of dealing with those kind of decks. So when we're going in at sideboard, we want to look at those cards for creature-based decks, such as Gruul, such as Mono Green. With control decks, you kind of want to like have value engines, something that can out value what they want to do, so that you can actually end up controlling the match and win in the long run. A lot of decks will try and prevent you from playing cards, or like slow down your play, and then you'll basically have no hand, and then you kind of lose. This is kind of hard to deal with in certain cases with rogues, but if you are able to negate their big win cards, or if you're able to benefit off of like using recurring cards over and over that can give you value throughout the game, that is your best way of handling these matches, and that's what some cards in the sideboard are for. So we'll talk about that when we get there. Lastly, we're going to be talking about ramp, which is basically just Temur Ramp, kinda sometimes the green ones, kinda sometimes the Esper Doom Foretold ones, because they have their own variation of ramp, I guess. But basically in these kind of decks, you want to go fast as possible. You don't need all the removal as much. You need to just get in as much damage as you can, so you can sort of take things out and able to allow your deck to do so, to perform at its peak performance and not have to worry so much about being reactive. So yeah, with that being said, let's hop into the matchups. I'll tell you what you should be putting in, what should be taken out. Let's do it. Alrighty guys, so we're going to be going over this guide real quick of how to sideboard. I'm going to go in reverse order of the meta. So I'm going to be starting with Rakdos, going Temur Ramp, then into Yorion, Mono Green, Rogues, and Gruul. I'm going to be telling you what to take out, what to put in, and then the reasons why. So I'll break it into 3 parts for each of them. So let's get this thing on the road. Starting with Rakdos, so their deck's kind of unique in the fact that they want cards in their graveyard, and we give them cards in the graveyard. So we're going to have to address that in our sideboarding. So we are going to take out our Mystical Dispute and 3 of our Ruin Crabs, and we're going to put in a Cling to Dust and 3 Skyclave Shades. This being that we want tools to negate their recursion, aka the Cling to the Dust, to kill their creatures in the graveyard, as well as Sky Shade, because if we can't do it in time and they make us discard our cards, we will just be able to replay them from the graveyard that way. So we have both recursion and target removal against their graveyard strategy. Alrighty, next we're hopping into the Teamer Ramp matchup. It's been a lot more popular lately with the Obosh build. So yeah, we're going to take out an Essence Scatter, we're going to take out 2 Eliminates, and we're going to take out 1 Lull Mage. And we're going to be putting in 2 Negate and 2 Mystical Dispute. This main reason is the deck really pops off by being able to get to its ultimatum and its Great Henge and stuff like that, and you want to prevent that at all costs. Eliminate's pretty good, but a lot of their win cards are above that threshold, that mana threshold, so we kind of want to kind of give up that destruction for saving us in the end game. And while Lull Mage is pretty good, so that's why we're keeping 1 in the deck. Ultimately, you want to be able to handle the big CMC ultimatum. So just getting rid of that creature stealing and being able to prevent the craziness that is the ultimatum is much more important, in my opinion. Yorion is pretty much a counter to this kind of deck strategy. You know, we want to be milling, we want to be taking advantage of that. Yorion has so many cards in the deck that it kind of negates what our whole kind of plan is. So to combat that, we're going to take out 4 of the Ruin Crabs. We're going to take out 2 Lull Mage and an Essence Scatter. We're going to be putting in 1 Cling, 2 Negates, 2 Mystical Disputes, and 2 Maze Mines. Yes, this is probably one of the better matches for Maze Mine. It gives us the ability to kind of grind out with the Yorion deck, gives us a card advantage engine that can get us to where we need to go to win. Mystical Disputes and Negates, again, are there to protect us from A, Yorion, B, from the ECDs, things that might ruin our game plan. Not that we have a lot of things over 3 mana, but them getting to recur their cards from the graveyard is pretty annoying, and making our cards tax is also annoying, as well as stopping their own Maze Mine times, so they don't get the card advantage that they're trying to get. And Cling is there to get rid of enchantments in their graveyard, allowing us to draw and making their card weaker through their graveyard being not full of enchantments anymore. Couldn't quite remember what that card was called, but it's called Dance of the Manse. We make Dance of the Manse weaker by exiling their enchantments from the graveyard, so that's why we're doing it. Alright, next we're getting into the top 3 of the meta, so these are the big boys you're going to be seeing a lot on ladder, especially in Mythic. I feel like I only play against Gruul and Mono Green and Yorion, but here we go anyways. This one's on Mono Green. So Mono Green, we're going to be taking out Mystical Dispute and one of our Merfolk Wind Robbers, and we're going to be putting in a Lull Mage and an Anti-Cognition. So basically we want to sacrifice our Negate because they don't have any blue, and the Merfolk's kind of early pressure, I guess, for a Lull Mage, which can give us their pressure, as well as Anti-Cognition, which can slow down their tempo. The reason being, they run the Goose, it's an 0-2 flyer. Merfolk can't even mill against that deck anyways if they have that on turn 1, which they usually do. So I kind of just like, you know, it's not a feel-good card in the matchup, so we're just going to swap out those 2 cards, see how it goes. This matchup is pretty much in our favor, I think. You negate their big spells and you just get in with flyers, you should be winning more often than not. And yeah. Another card you can put in is a Cling to Dust and take out 1 more Wind Robber. That way you can exile those nasty trolls that get in that graveyard and keep on recurring through eating food. So just another one if you want to throw in another card. But ultimately, I think it's a pretty good matchup. Now, the Rogues Mirror match is a pretty interesting one. Surprisingly, you don't want to mill them as much as you would think you would, because often their sideboard and our own sideboard is going to like mitigate the mill amount, basically, and kind of make it hard to do our aggro plan that we want to do with this deck. So yeah, I recommend taking out 4 Ruin Crabs, 2 Lull Mage, and an Essence Scatter, putting in Call the Death Dweller, 2 Mystical Disputes, a Cling to Dust, and Skyclave Shades. Basically, you want to take out the crabs because crab ultimately just gives them access to replaying their own Cling to Dust, and then that will eliminate their graveyard at a faster pace than we can fill it, and then that ultimately gives them more draws than we are getting ourselves. So that's why I like to take out the crab in that matchup. That comboed with the 1-drop becomes a Death Toucher anyways and can get through the crab, so it's not a necessary component in this matchup. Yeah. As well as the Sky Shade and the Call of Death Dweller. These things are just for recursion. If our things die, we have the ability to bring them all back and kind of grind out the match in a way that we wouldn't be able to with our main deck. And yeah, the Mystical Dispute is, again, just to fight basically counter spells. We want our thing to resolve. They negate it. We negate their negate. Ours resolves. Kind of dealio. Mainly to save your end of the story so you can get out all that value towards the end of the game where it really matters. Lastly, we're going to be talking about Gruul. Now, Gruul has a pretty tough matchup. They're very aggressive, and they can out-aggro us pretty easily, as well as their big artifacts come into play and really push their power level beyond ours a lot of the time, and their sideboard is basically geared 100% at rogues. So what do we got against Gruul? Well, I'm going to suggest taking out one end of the story, a Heartless Act, and 2 Ruin Crabs. Or the Merfolk Windriver. It's up to you which one you want to take out in this matchup. I like having the aggressive flyer more than the crab, but the crab does block out a lot of the early aggression pretty well. And I would recommend putting in a Lull Mage, 2 negates, 1 Cling to Dust, and an Anti-Cognition. The real reason for this is you want to stop their creatures, which we do with Anti-Cognition, and Lull Mage will give us their creatures, so we get to use their own tempo against them. On top of that, we want the negate to be able to stop like an Embercleave, or stop a Great Henge from dropping, or a Vivian. All these get handled for 2 mana, pretty sweet. And Cling to Dust is basically there to stop their annoying escape creatures. The same goes for the Rakdos matchup, same goes for Teamer. Anything that basically has green or red, will be putting in these escape creatures to kind of eat up their graveyard to get rid of our bonus effects from our rogues, and as such shut down our deck in that way by getting like cheap, good static creatures back. So you want to really have a tool to get rid of those before they can affect us too bad. Oh, and we want to take out our 1 Mystical Dispute to kind of round up the numbers in that last sideboard in the Gruul matchup, so that everything's all nice and neat. Now, of course, I want you guys to take everything with a grain of salt of what I'm saying. Obviously, things change, the meta, it might be different about what you're siding, what's in your side deck by like next week, something like that, so just keep that in mind. Basically, with these videos, I kind of want to just instill in you guys how I think about when I sideboard, and give you the opportunity to be able to kind of learn these skills and be able to apply it yourself. So you don't necessarily need to look at a guide all the time, but you kind of get the general idea of what you're supposed to be doing, and then you can just put in your own ideas and become just a better player in general. And yeah, that's really all this videos are about at the end of the day. It's just so we'll all get better together. Anyways, with that being said, just want to say thank you again, guys, for watching. My stream schedule's been a little crazy lately because of the holidays and how things have been going lately in my life. But if you do want to know when I'm streaming, best way to find out is through Twitter. I usually do an update sometime before I go live, and yeah, we're kind of jumping back and forth between mornings and nights, trying to figure out what works the best for me and like people in my life, so everyone be happy. All right, guys, so what do you think about the sideboard guide? Do you think you put in the same cards, take out the same cards? Let me know what you think. Next time we're going to be talking about the mid-range rogues and see how they vary in the matchups. It's going to be a little similar, but they do have a little bit of different cards in their pool, so we'll be talking about that in the next video. Thanks again, as always. Check you next time.